The City of Hagerstown staff announced recently that an early look at the upcoming budget shows a shortfall of $1.5 million, or approximately 3% of the total budget. Bob, the city has been increasing taxes in recent years. How is this possible?
Well, it could have something to do with the amount of individuals that they've hired over the last couple of years, which increased by 19 full-time employees since 2013.
Does that include the trash gatherer, or we haven't?
That hasn't included that yet.
Okay.
We haven't included him yet. Yeah, the the guy who's going to go around and maintain weeds and
right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We have a whole department for that. I don't know why we're hiring somebody else, but apparently we are. So yeah.
So.
Yeah.
Okay. So you said 18 additional full-time
19
additional full-time equivalent employees. And of course, health insurance costs.
Oh yeah. You're looking at an average with total benefits probably of, you might as well say 50,000. That's a small, that's probably erring on the conservative side, 50,000 an employee. So that's another million right there all by itself, just an employee.
So there's $1 million out of your 1.5 potentially.
Yeah.
And I also understand that a couple of the union contracts are up this week.
All four of them
this year.
Yep.
All four of them.
Yeah. So,
well,
a lot going on, Colin.
I think in all honesty, when you're dealing with at least with the increases in health insurance and everything, that's something that everybody suffers. So certainly reading through, I know that the city financial manager is going to be coming back with a proposal that actually will bring forward a balanced budget. I think there's definitely, this represents what, 15% or no, 3% of the city budget. So there is, I'm sure, opportunity for getting that into a balanced scenario somehow.
What do you think about, have we raised taxes too much in the city? Is that something that should be open for discussion? Emily, what are your thoughts on that?
I don't think it should be open. Well, everything should be open for discussion. I don't know if that is the solution. I think they need to look at where their money's going and where they can cut back before we raise taxes again.
I mean, in all honesty, and I think you're absolutely right, that should be, raising taxes should always be the very last step that you take, because there's always, in government, there's always opportunity for cost savings. There's always some inefficiency someplace that can be addressed.
Bob, go ahead. I'm sorry, Emily.
A 10% increase in health insurance is what I think they said they're taking, 9.9%. I mean, that right there is a huge increase. Why are they shopping around carriers?
And that's it. See, we face the same kind of issues. And just so you know, Al Martin, who has filed to run for school board, but anyway, he was our chief financial officer for
Many
years at the city of Hagerstown. And Al Martin always came in with guaranteed the worst of the worst of the worst scenarios every single time. But, in his defense, every year we had a surplus. So because
is this lady potentially following in his footsteps? I mean, if you're an accountant,
because I think she's actually doing the flip side of that, because they're looking at a potential 9.9% increase in health insurance costs, and she's only budgeting for 7%. Now, as far as I'm concerned, you're already 2.9% behind the eight ball. I mean, budget for 9.9 if that's what the insurance company is telling you. But, and you're right, Emily, exactly what you said. Okay, what can we do better? Can we piggyback off Washington County government? Can we do other things? I mean, the bigger the pot is, the less everybody pays into it. So, I mean, maybe the city's own personal health care is not the real answer anymore. I mean, we had this dilemma back in 1998, and we had Blue Cross Blue Shield, and so we were looking at a huge increase. Now, they had been a carrier for years, and we decided by somebody's leadership, and I think I was in there back then, we decided that we were going to bid this out, and so we had a bid that saved us like $2 million. So we went with them for 1 year. The following year, it was remarkable. We had to bid it out again because it was only a 1 year contract. Following year, Blue Cross Blue Shield came in more than $2 million less than they were originally the year before.
Wow.
So, I mean, they think they have a monopoly, and that creates the problem. They become lazy, and they figure, well, we got these people, we're just going to go ahead and milk them now. And that's not how it's supposed to work.
So, Bob, you talked about the full-time equivalency additions. But Colin, you know, the other point in this is we lost some potentially high-priced positions with Karen Giffen,
John Lestitian,
Bruce Zimmerman.
Bruce
And
Zimmerman.
again, I don't know whether you
well,
paid the new people.
I don't think we saved any money when we lost Bruce Zimmerman. I think that we started Valerie out at pretty much where he was at. So.
Well, but regardless, I mean, you lost 2 high-priced positions, and John Lestitian's job has never been filled, has it?
Actually, Jill, they've did some reorganization. Jill Frick is now a director of she's not a department head, she's a director of community and economic development. The only problem with that is there's nobody currently in economic development. Now, we need jobs in this city, but there's nobody currently in economic development.
So, Colin, it sounds like there's a position that needs to be filled. How do we deal with that? Because maybe that's a budgeted position.
I think it's probably in the budget.
Okay.
So, I mean, to me, I think, at least based on what I've read in terms of statements being put out by the council, they're looking at all options. So this is not something that's set in stone. We're not dealing with the deficit is something that's projected. It's not something that's here right now. So I think, you know, it's very easy for us to sit here and criticize based on a plan that was put out, but let's see what, you know, ultimately the proof will be in the pudding.
Well, yeah, and again, and you're right. I mean, every year we looked at it, it seemed like we had a deficit we faced every single year. And, you know, every year, like I said, our chief financial officer would come in and he'd give us the boo-hoos of what was wrong with the budget, and then we'd find a way to create a balanced budget. Now, in defense of my administration, I'll tell you, we didn't raise taxes to do that. You know, we cut positions. We cut 29 positions in 2010. Because, you know, people who were at the end of their tenure, who were getting ready to retire, things like that, we didn't fill those positions anymore. But we found a way to balance the budget. Yeah. In 2008, when we had the beginning of the Great Depression, the second Great Depression, you know, we lost a ton of money from the county and the city, or the county and the state. So, you know, we had to make that money up somewhere.
Well, and that's another point, and I appreciate your comments about the doom and gloom, and it sometimes starts out this way. But, you know, if you look at property values, and property values have increased a little bit, but they're certainly nowhere near where they were before the big hit in 2008.
Well, that was overinflation from the state of Maryland,
exactly.
just so you know.
I understand that,
I mean, that's what that was.
But the point is, you know, because of the way the assessments are done, it took a couple of years for that to really hit the city. And then we started reacting and raising taxes so we could get the same amount of revenue potentially off of a property that is of less value than it was a couple of years ago. But is that still a factor in this process, Emily, do you think?
I have no idea.
Well, 2013, well, actually 2016 is a next triennial reassessment. So we'll see assessments again this year for the next 3 years in the city of Hagerstown. So
property values have been rising, but they certainly, and it's a good thing, they haven't been rising as meteorically as they were prior to the bubble burst.
Commercial especially has
right.
risen.
But it has been creeping up, so I think that will be a windfall as well when the next assessment is done.
But, you know, it's funny, in preparation for this segment, I did looked at comparables on a house I own in the city, and the reality is, you know, I'm still 50 grand off where I was in 2008.
Oh yeah. I took a huge
Well,
hit.
And I see that all the time at work.
Where I was in 2008, but the reality of the matter is it went up almost 100,000 in the 2 years before that.
Right.
So I mean that was definitely a very unreal inflation that occurred in the housing market, and you're absolutely right. We're coattailing off of Montgomery County, we're coattailing off of Frederick County, and the property values there shot up a lot more than they did here. I mean, ridiculously so. So I was working in Rockville at the time. They were selling 30-year-old townhouses for $650,000, which there is not $300,000 worth of value in that land and that house, let alone the fact that they were falling apart and dilapidated and everything else.
Right. They were 30 years old.
Right. Exactly.
So your projection, will tax increases be a part of this budget reconciliation in this year?
It's an election year. I don't think you'll see a tax increase.
Colin?
I don't think so either.
Emily?
No.
And that's all we got to say about that. Next up on the flip side, the state is also working on a new budget. We've had a look at it. Stay tuned for that report. We're back at 3.